All right, and shalom, shalom, shalom. This is Elder James, and I'm with the King James Bible University, coming out of Durham, North Carolina. And before we get into tonight's teaching, we do want to make it known, as we always do, that we here at the King James Bible University and the house of the lost sheep of Israel, we are not affiliated with any institution, with any organization, with any Christian denomination, with any Black Hebrew street camp, or any institution or organization that has established itself in this world. We are not affiliated with any of these groups, and we stand alone here at King James Bible University and the house of the lost sheep of Israel. We only use the 1611 King James Bible with the Apocrypha, the sovereign King James Bible. And that's what we hold to, and that's what we believe in, and that's what we always hold to. So we always want to make that known. So again, shalom, 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 everybody. So we're going to get started in this teaching that we'll actually be getting into tonight, and now, which is entitled The System of Rebellion. So that's the title of this teaching. Now, this teaching that we'll actually be doing, this is actually going to be the first part of a series that we'll be doing, that we'll be getting into, involving this system of rebellion. So that's what we're going to be getting into. So as we go through this teaching, we're gonna understand some things, and then we're gonna continue to move forward on this. But before we actually get started, I do want to also once again let the moderators know that we can put in the verses in the chat, but we won't actually need any spiritual word meanings or any spiritual word functions put in the chat. So I just want to make sure that we got that clear and we understood on that we don't need any spiritual word meanings or any spiritual word functions in the chat. So we just want everybody to focus in on what's being said in the lesson tonight. So with that, we see what we have here, this system of rebellion. So this system of rebellion, this is actually speaking about the Nimrod function. So that's something that majority of us here, we should already be familiar with, because this is something that Elder has been speaking to us about. So this Nimrod function, this represents the carnal mind, and this system is actually operating in the presence of us to this very day. So this very function that we looking at, this is not ancient history, nor is it something for us just to learn about or something for us to just read about in scripture. However, this very system of rebellion, this is the present condition or the current address of a vessel, meaning it's not a physical location. It's not that. It's not a physical address, but it's the current state of mind of a vessel who has not crossed over to the other side, over Jordan, to being spiritually minded, being under JEHOVAH's governance. So that's what's going on. But this is those of us who still remain in our own self-built structures and this tower of this self-governance and this self-reasoning of our own mind. So this very rebellion that we speaking of, it's not loud, nor is it aggressive. This very rebellion is not loud, nor is it aggressive, but it can be quiet and it can be subtle. It's not an opposing force that is trying to break through from the outside, but it's something that has already came from within. So this is the vessel who has made themselves stiff and hardened against the hand of the Father, against the will of the Creator, who will only abide by their own will of their own self-governance. This rebellion is this governing institutionalized system of the carnal mind of a vessel who maintains their own image of self while resisting JEHOVAH's image. But what we have to understand is this: the vessel did not choose to be governed by the rebellion. So you didn't choose the rebellion, but the rebellion chose you, because you was born within it, meaning we were formed in the flesh, which this flesh is in opposition to JEHOVAH. So unless this very nature of this carnal mind is actually condemned and destroyed, no matter what, we will always operate within this system. See, I want to show us something for us to understand what's actually going on here. Because when we go over here, I want to show us. So what we're going to do, we're going to start right here. And we're going to start right here in Psalms chapter 51. I want to show us something. So we're going to start over here. We're going to start over here in Psalms chapter 51. And we're going to start at verse 5. But we're going to take it to the semicolon. And we're going to hit Psalms chapter 51 and verse 5. And it says, behold. So remember, I was shapen in iniquity. So I want us to consider something. See, I want us to understand this part right here, this part that I have highlighted. It says, remember, I was shapen in iniquity. So when something is shapen, so the way shaping functions, something that is shapen, it is formed, it is molded, it is fashioned. So it's letting us know that I was formed, I was fashioned in iniquity. So we was formed in iniquity. We was formed in sin. We was formed in unrighteousness, in wickedness, in evil, in corruption. So what I want us to understand with this is this flesh that we are in right now is in corruption, but we have to see why. We have to understand this. So let's go over here to Genesis chapter 6, and we're going to hit verse 11 and verse 12, and he's going to tell us something. In Genesis chapter 6, starting at verse 11, and it says, the earth, so the people, also was corrupt before God. So in the presence of God, and the people was filled with violence. And God looked upon the earth. So he looked upon all the people, and behold, remember, it was corrupt. For all flesh had corrupted his way upon the earth. So we see this part right here after the semicolon in verse 12. This part right here, he tell you, for all flesh had corrupted his way upon the earth. So this part right here, we highlighting so we can make our point, but we can even see that even from the beginning, we can see that flesh, humanity, mankind has always been corrupt before God because flesh corrupted his way. So this is why he even tell us when we go over here, we can even see to even further enforce this point, showing that this flesh is corrupt. He tell us in 1 Corinthians chapter 15. I'm going to show us this here. In 1 Corinthians chapter 15, he tell us this in verse 50. 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verse 50, it says, now this I say, brethren, that flesh and blood cannot inherit the kingdom of God, neither do of corruption inherit incorruption. So we see that there. So this corruption can't inherit incorruption. Why? Because it's flesh. This flesh and blood and the lifestyle of it is corruption. So this continues to reinforce the point that flesh and blood and the lifestyle of it is corruption. It's sinfulness. It's decay. It's uncleanness in it. But then you still have people that believe that their flesh is going to heaven. This is why it's one of the silliest things in the world when people believe that as soon as somebody dies, as soon as their family member pass away, and then first thing they're going to do is make these pictures that they're going to put on a obituary, and they're going to put their family member up there sitting in the clouds with wings. This is the first thing people are going to do. But this is what we're talking about. But you have people that might have an issue with that statement. But the thing is, this shows what we do as a people. Now understanding that flesh and blood cannot inherit the kingdom of God because it's corruption. So why in the world we going to sit there and believe, oh, well, so-and-so probably up there right now. Or I know so-and-so up there right now. And they looking down from heaven from us. It's corruption. Thinking that you got your family up, the family members that don't passed on up there flying around with wings in flesh. You can't make it make sense. You sit there and you see it everywhere, believing that people that have passed on, that their flesh is going to rise back up and then they're going to fly into heaven, thinking we're going to be raptured up and all this craziness. Come on now. This is the point that we making, showing it's corrupt. That's not going to happen. See, what we have to understand is this. Flesh became corrupt before, meaning in the presence of God. Flesh became corrupt in the presence of God. So understand this. For something to be a corrupt, even according to the spiritual dictionary. Matter of fact, let me pull it up. I ain't even have the spiritual dictionary up. Let me show this. Let me show this right here. For something to be corrupt, because we want to show exactly what it says. Corrupt. It's telling you. Corrupt. Change from original agreement. Change from original covenant. That's for something to be corrupt. For something to be corrupt, it means to change from the original agreement or to change from the original covenant. That's what corrupt actually means. So when we get back over here, so we see back over here in Genesis chapter 6 and verse 12, God looked upon the people, and remember, it was corrupt. So we know a change happened. That's the key. All flesh had corrupted his way upon the earth. See, I want us to understand something so we can understand where I'm actually coming from with this. So we can understand why I made those statements I made earlier. This rebellion that we speaking of, it did not come from the outside. It did not start from the outside, but it started from within. This is what I want us to understand, because I want to even show us something. Because he tell you, all flesh corrupted his way. But I want to show us something. I want to show us something. What did he even tell us about us? So I want to show us something over here in Genesis. Not Genesis, but Jeremiah. He even tell us something. In Jeremiah chapter 10. Show us something here. In Jeremiah chapter 10 and verse 23, he tell us something. In Jeremiah chapter 10 and verse 23, it says, "O Lord, O Spirit of God, I know that the way of man is not in himself. It is not in man that walketh to direct his steps." So we see what's being said here. Let's really think about what's being said here. The way of man is not in himself. The way of a male and female is not in himself. So how can man direct himself? Think about that. To direct is to guide, it's to lead, it's to govern. So the question again is, how can a man lead, govern, and direct his own path in his own way? The way of man is not in himself. So how are we doing this? So we should already be seeing why we having the issue. Because man was already given away. That's the point. That's the issue. That's why I said back over here in Genesis 6 and 12, when it says, "For all flesh have corrupted his way upon the earth." Because the way that we was given, we corrupted that. We changed from the original agreement that we was actually given. Let me show you what I'm talking about. See, this is why we had the issue, because he gave us the way. We can see right here in Genesis chapter 1 and verse 27. Genesis chapter 1 verse 27, it said, "So God created man in his own image. In the image of God created he him. Male and female created he them." We also going to pull Genesis chapter 5. We're going to hit verse 1 and verse 2 with it. And it tells us, it says, "This is the book of the generations of Adam. In the day that God created man, in the likeness of God made he him. Male and female created he them. And blessed them, so gave wisdom to them, and called their name, so called their way Adam, in the day when they was created." So he already gave us a way. That's our way, Adam, mankind. So he already gave us a way. So this proves the point. Adam is speaking about mankind, male and female. Adam is not speaking about one specific person, nor is Adam speaking about all of humanity. I just want to make that point. Adam is not speaking about all of humanity, but is speaking about mankind. This is a people who God formed and gave his way to. So I want to show us this, even so we can even make that separation and that distinction on even what we even saying with that. So let's go over here. Let's go over here to Sirach or Ecclesiasticus chapter 33. We're going to hit Sirach or Ecclesiasticus chapter 33, and we're going to We're going to hit verse 10, and we're going to take it down to 13. Sirach, or Ecclesiastes chapter 33, and we're going to start at verse 10, and it tells us, it says, and all men are from the ground, and including Adam, including mankind, male and female, the ones who God gave this weight to, was created of earth. So this is the point. All men are from the ground. So they all come from the ground. We all come from the ground. But he says, including Adam. So this distinction is made, including mankind. So this specific people that he's talking about, which is the way that he gave to this people, is mankind, was created of earth. So this is why it makes it even more serious, because remember, he said back in Genesis 6, all flesh had corrupted his way upon the earth. But before we get back to that, I want to finish this out on what it's saying right here in verse 11. And it says, in much knowledge, the Lord have divided them. So separated them and made their ways diverse. Some of them have he blessed, given wisdom to, and exalted. And some of them have he sanctified. So some of them he separated, he consecrated, and set near himself. But some of them have he cursed and brought low, and turned out of their places. As the clay is in the potter's hand to fashion it at his pleasure, so man is in the hand of him that made him, to render them as liketh him best. So this is the point. We can see this separation, this division that is being made right here. Even the word here, diverse. He made their ways diverse. This word diverse, it carries the spiritual function of a division. So we can see that these are two different systems that are operating right here at the same time. You have some that he blessed and he gave wisdom to, that he exalted and brought near unto himself. Then you have those that are cursed, that are brought low. Both of these systems are operating simultaneously at the same time. So to make it simple, this shows that there are diverse ways that's in us as a people right now. You have those who draw closer to JEHOVAH, who are given wisdom, who are exalted and drawn closer to him. You have those who are cursed and brought low, who are separated from him. This is happening right now. You have those who are operating under this system of rebellion according to this flesh, operating under this self-governance. This is the man who says within himself, I will direct my own path and my own way, believing that he is finding his own way when he don't even know the way to find. What way? What way is he going to find? When he already told us. He already done told us. Back over here, Jeremiah 10:23. I know that the way of man is not in himself. It is not in man that walketh to direct his steps. So what way you going to find? When he don't even know that he's still under the governance of the carnal mind. He don't know he's still caught in the Nimrod system. He was born into it. That's why I showed us that verse at the beginning of this teaching. Remember, I was shaping in iniquity. Thought I still had it up. Let me go back. Yup, Psalms 51:5. I was shaping in iniquity. We was all formed and established in this flesh. But the issue is JEHOVAH gave us away. Meaning he gave Adam. He gave mankind this way to follow. I can show it to us. He gave us a way. We can't say we didn't have one. No, he gave us one. That's why he even shows us when we go over here. Let's see it. Over here in Second Esdras. In Second Esdras chapter 3. Let's go over here. Second Esdras chapter 3. Second Esdras chapter 3. And we're gonna hit verse 5 down to 7. Second Esdras chapter 3. We're gonna hit verse 5 down to 7. And we only need this part right here. That's the furthest we need to go. Second Esdras chapter 3, starting at verse 5, and it said, and gave us a body unto Adam without soul, which was the workmanship of thy hands, of his powers. And it is breathed unto him the breath of life, and he was made living before thee, so in the presence of thee. And thou leadest him into paradise, which thy right hand, so his righteous power hath planted, before ever the earth came forward. Watch this. And unto him thou gavest commandment to what? To promise thy way, to love thy way. So he gave us a way. He can't say he didn't. He gave us a way. So this is the point. This is what I was talking about the entire time. So we was given a way. He gave us commandment. He gave us instruction to promise his way. So we was already given the law. So then again, how can a man direct his own steps in his own path? As soon as a vessel goes against the way of his maker, this is the same clay that rejects the forming of the potter. The very vessel is now operating in rebellion. This same rebellion that was operating since the Garden of Eden. Because Adam, mankind, was given commandment to promise Jehovah's way. But we went against that. So let's look at this. So let's go over here to 2nd Esdras. 2nd Esdras chapter 7. Let's go over here to the 2nd Esdras chapter 7. And we're going to hit verse 48. 2nd Esdras chapter 7 verse 48. And it says, "O thou Adam, mankind, what hast thou done? For though it was thou that sinned, thou art in your perfection and beauty, not fallen alone, but we all that come of thee." Exactly the point. So that's why I say this is not a history lesson. This ain't going in the scripture and reading something and saying, "Oh, that's what happened to them." No, we looking at the thing. We ain't looking at a history lesson where we looking at things that happened in the past. This very rebellion of mankind applies to the present state of those of us right now who operate in this carnal mind, because we all fell a sin. That's why he said, "But we all that come of thee." Why? Because we can prove the point. Because he even tell us right here over here in Romans. He tell us this. He tell us this in Romans because we can't get around it. We can't get around it. He tells us over here in Romans chapter 3 and verse 23, he says, "For all," not some, "all have sinned and come short of the glory of God." So this verse clearly shows that no flesh is excluded from this same very descendant. Everybody here right now, everybody who is in flesh have all fallen to sin, have all fallen to this rebellion because we was born in it. We was brought forth in it. That is the condition of the environment. So that's the point that I'm making. This is not a mere historical event with Adam. Like people like to look at it and believe and think that everybody in the world came from this one man who failed to sin, who disobeyed God, and then he just messed it up for the entire world. No, it's not that. Because I want to even prove the point that this world that we in was already in confusion from the beginning. Because I want to show us that over here in Genesis chapter 1, that's to even prove the point. Because he tells us in Genesis chapter 1 and verse 2, we can even see this. It says, "And the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the water." So we can clearly see that this was the condition of the clay, of the earth, of the people. It was formless and without shape and void. So there was no understanding this spiritual darkness and blindness until Jehovah shaped and formed it into what it is when he gave us a way. This is before he formed and established Adam, this people, mankind that he gave his wisdom and understanding to. Before he established his people, the earth was already void. There was already darkness and confusion. But people sit there and believe, "Oh, it was just one man in the world, and this one man, from this one man, everybody fell to sin." No, this world was already in darkness. This is how this world is set. This world itself is set in darkness. That's why he even tells us in 2nd Esdras chapter 14, 2nd Esdras chapter 14 and verse 20. You see what he say? It says, "Behold, remember, Lord, I will go as thou hast commanded me, and reprove the people." So warn, so admonish, exhort the people which are present. But they that shall be born, that shall be brought forth afterward, who shall admonish them? Thus the world is set in darkness, and they that dwell therein are without light. Exactly the point. So this world is set in darkness. It's set in spiritual blindness, confusion. Look around us. But Jehovah is the one who has to bring that light. That's the point. He's the one who established a people, Adam. Mankind, that he set near to himself. But again, the same thing is, no matter what, because of the nature of this flesh, because of this nature of this flesh, because of the clay that rejects the hand of the potter, we become rebellious by rejecting the shaping and the forming of the hand that formed it. This is the issue. This is a continuous thing for us, even unto this very day, even to this present day. Even when Jehovah is trying to shape us, when he's trying to mold us and form us into what we are supposed to be, we still reject it. Why? Because we don't want to be torn down. we don't want to be torn down. This is our issue, because when we get torn down, it's not for our destruction, but it's our flesh that has to be torn down and destroyed. It's the carnal mind that has to be torn down in order for the spiritually minded to be built. But how can Jehovah form and shape us in what we supposed to be if we're going to continue to reject the breaking down of this fleshly mind, of this carnal nature? But we want to keep our own form of what we have built for ourselves. We want to continue to stay stiff. We want to continue to stay hardened and stand afar off, thinking our way is right, and don't even understand our own building, our own thought processes, our own reasonings is what is keeping us from surrendering. It's keeping us in rebellion. When he even tell us right here, let's go over here to Jeremiah. Let's go over here to Jeremiah chapter 18. Let's go over here to Jeremiah chapter 18. Jeremiah chapter 18, verse 4 down to verse 6. He tell us something. Jeremiah chapter 18, starting at verse 4, and it says, "And the vessel that he made of clay was marred. It was damaged. It was destroyed." Why? Because we caught up in this system, in the hand of the potter. So he made it again, another vessel, as seemed good to the potter to make it. Then the word of the Spirit of God came unto me, saying, O house of Israel, cannot I do with you as this potter, saith the Spirit of God? Behold, as the clay is in the potter's hand, so are you in my hand, under my power, O house of Israel. So this is the point. But again, if we reject the hand, then it's showing that we still operating under the Nimrod government. This same system of rebellion, because we rejecting the shaping and the forming. Because the thing is, before that vessel can actually be made again, it has to be broken down. But we reject that, because first the vessel has to be broken completely. That's why we can see this here. That's why he tells us this over here in Leviticus. In Leviticus chapter 11 and verse 33, he tell you, and it says, "And every earthen vessel, whereinto any of them falleth, whatsoever is in it shall be unclean." Yeah, it's corrupted, and you shall break it. So this earthen vessel cannot be reformed. Is what it is. This earthen vessel cannot be reshaped. It cannot be reestablished. It cannot be rebuilt. It has to be completely broken down and everything that comes with it. So our flesh, our carnal minds, it cannot be reformed and shapen into something good. That's what I'm saying. As much as a lot of us might hate to hear that, but the carnal mind cannot be shapen into something that Jehovah can use. No, he has to destroy it. He has to break it. And the reason being is this. This is why we see this. This is why we see this over in Romans chapter 8. That's why he tells us this over in Romans chapter 8 and verse 7. Romans chapter 8 and verse 7, it says, "Because the carnal mind is enmity against God, for it's not subject to the law of God, neither indeed in works can be." So the carnal mind is enmity against God. So it's contrary. It's opposed. It's going to resist. It operates in rebellion against God. So the carnal mind is straight up rebellion. This is why you see that the carnal mind is contrary. It's opposed. It's going to resist God. It's going to resist the breaking of the vessel. This is why so many of us have the issue with it, and we can't be reformed and shapen into vessels of honor. This is within Adam. This is within mankind. This is within us. We ain't talking about nobody else. This is the issue that we got going on here within us. That's why you even see when he tells us over here in 2 Timothy. That's why you see he tell you right here in 2 Timothy. Right here, 2 Timothy chapter 2, starting at verse 20. It says, but in a great house, there are not only vessels of gold and of silver, but also of wood and of earth, and some to honor and some to dishonor. Going right back to the same thing that we just seen in Sirach chapter 33. This is the division. This is the diverse ways operating at the same time. So you see this separation is constantly being made. These are diverse ways. These are two systems operating simultaneously. That's why you see it's always a mixed multitude within the house. Some going to be operating in flesh and some going to be operating to the spirit. But both of these are going to be operating at the same time. It says, if a man, provided a man, therefore purge himself from these, he shall be a vessel unto honor, sanctified, and meet for the master's use, and prepared unto every good work. This is the point. But we have to be willing to be purged. But that ain't going to happen if we're not willing to be broken. So this is the issue. This rebellion is within us as a people. That's why I say we don't need to look on the outside. We don't need to look at nobody else. We need to look within and look at self. It's not something on the outside. It's not an opposing force that's coming against us from the outside. It's already in the house. That's the point I'm making. So why in the world we got bars of iron up on our house for? What we trying to guard? What we've got our guard up against? Our own worst enemy is ourselves. What we got our guard up against when the enemy is already in the house? You don't believe it? We don't believe it? I'll show it to you. I'll show you. He already in the house. Show you. Let's go over here to Romans chapter 7. Prove the point. Romans chapter 7, verse 18. Let's prove the point. It says, for I know. And guess what? Each and every single one of us might as well say it. For I know. We all know. For I know that in me, understand that in me, that is, in my flesh, dwelleth no good thing. For to will is present with me, but how to perform that which is good, I find not. I find not. Not in his flesh. Watch this in verse 17. He says, now then, it is no more I that do it, but sin that dwelleth in me. He already in the house. So what we guarding against? That's why I say, I know that in me dwelleth no good thing. Not in his flesh. The enemy already here. He already within us. The opposition is already from within. Because we was already brought up in this system. We was brought forth in flesh. We was brought forth in iniquity. So what you think flesh gonna do? The flesh gonna do what the flesh gonna do. It's gonna rebel no matter what. That's its nature. There's nothing else that it's gonna do. It's contrary to God. So all of this is showing us the spiritual condition of us, not of one man. For all have fallen short of the glory of God. So for a covenant people, this mankind who have become corrupted, who have changed from the original agreement, who have changed from the promise of Jehovah's way and to obey his voice. So this people have corrupted that. And this corruption has become more and more evident throughout the generations. See, this won't a one-time thing. This is even unto this day. This same corruption, this same rebellion is evident. We can prove the point. Let's continue. Let's go over here. Let's go over here to the second Esdras. Let's go over here to second Esdras. We're going to continue to prove. Let's go over here to second Esdras chapter 4. That's why I say we ain't talking about history. We talking about the present time. In second Esdras chapter 4, verse 30 down to 31. He tell us something. Second Esdras chapter 4, starting at verse 30 down to 31. It says, for the grain of evil seed have been sown in the heart of Adam. And this people, it's in us. It's in us from the beginning. And how much ungodliness have it brought up in this time? unto this time? How much? How much shall it yet bring forth until the time of threshing come? When he gonna make that separation? Ponder now by thyself how great fruit works of wickedness the grain of evil seed had brought forth. Exactly the point. That's the point I'm making. That's why I say this ain't no mere historical event. This is something that is happening right now in this present time to this very day. That's why I say ponder now. Ponder now by thyself. So he's telling us we need to consider this. Consider it. How much work of wickedness have it brought forth even unto this time? How much? So again, this is not about one man's transgression, but it's about all of us who operate in rebellion against Jehovah's governance. So one thing we have to keep in mind, again, we're not looking at other people, but we have to look at what's going on within self. Because remember, this entire book is speaking to us. It's about us. I want us to keep it in mind. So everything that we see, that we gonna be seeing, that we learning of, is gonna be pertaining to us on what we as a people need to understand. This is why we have to get off of looking at things carnally and start seeing things for what they are as a whole. Because even here, we can see that this wickedness has grown over time. It's been brought forth throughout the generations because we don't want to break these things that we want to hold to. It's going to go right back to the same thing. It's going to go right back to the same thing as he tells us. We go right back over here to Romans chapter 8 and verse 7. It says, because the carnal mind is enmity against God, for it's not subject to the law of God, neither indeed can be. It can't be subject to God. It can't be. This carnal mind is not subject to the law of God. This flesh is not obedient. It can't be. It's not under the authority to Jehovah's governance. It's not governed by Jehovah. The flesh is not governed by Jehovah. The flesh is under Nimrod's government. It functions in rebellion. It's a self-governing system. Why you think it's so hard for us to submit? Why you think that's so much of an issue for us? Do anybody ever think about when we sit here and we talk about surrender, we talk about submit and surrender? Do anybody think about why it's so hard for us to actually do that? Why you think it's so hard for us to actually do it? Why you think it's so hard for us and we still sit there and say what we want to do and what we trying to do? We'll come up each and every week saying, oh, I just want to surrender. I just want to surrender myself. I just want to surrender. But we still struggling with it. Have we even thought about why that is? You see it here. We won't let it go. We keep finding ourselves in the same position over and over again where this flesh is still trying to maintain ownership of these vessels. This is our issue. And we think we don't got a problem? You really think we don't got a problem? And we sit here pointing fingers, worrying about what everybody else going on, and we don't see what we got going on within our own house? Are you serious? We got bars up like a dang castle to protect our house? And the wickedness is... I'm going to go back to it again. I'm going to go right back to it. Romans 7:18, for I know that in me, that is in my flesh, dwelleth no good thing. Oh, but we sitting there, we standing up there like, oh, we good. Okay. For to will is present with me, but how to form that which is good, I find not. I can't find it. That's why I kept making the statement earlier. Flesh can't be formed into something good. You can't make your flesh good. I don't care what you do. But this is our issue. We trying to make it good. We trying to take Jehovah's ways and we trying to find some way to mix it with our own carnal nature to make ourselves fit. We trying to find some way to do that, and it's not going to work. You can't make your flesh good. That's exactly the reason why we continue to make excuses for ourselves. We trying to justify flesh. We trying to justify, but I want my flesh. We trying to justify it. Understand it. Every time we make excuses, we talk about it all the time, but I want us to see it from this perspective. Every time we make excuses, every time we making a justification for something, we justifying our flesh. So guess what? Every time we do that, we showing we operating under Nimrod's system. That's what we showing. A lot of us might believe, well, I don't think, yeah, that's what we doing. We showing because we operating in rebellion. That's all we doing. That's all it is. Soon as we make an excuse, we making a justification, we rebellion against Jehovah. Why? Because he already told us you got to break the vessel. We got to break it. We got to break our thought processes. We got to break our own carnal reasonings. We got to break our own, the way we want to see things. But guess what? We don't want it to be broken. We want to defend it. we trying to defend. Look, every single time we do this, it happens because this is stiff. Just as a stiff glove, that stiff glove that has not been filled with the hand of Jehovah's governance of his spirit. Think about this. Think about what we actually do here. Think about what we carry the name. We carrying the name of the covenant people, but then we still turn around and do things contrary to God. We resist the breaking of the vessel, but we're going to carry the name of the covenant people. We resist the change, but we still going to carry the name of the covenant people. We sit here, we recite scriptures all day, every day. We can memorize verses all day, every day. We attend all the services. We attend all the teachings. We attend all the events. We participate in all the activities, and we do it for years. For years. Consistently. We always showing up for everything, but then still refuse to change. We'll come right up here and open our mouths and say, I'm still trying to figure it out. What we trying for? We refuse to actually apply the things that we actually been learning. What's the point? See, again, what it's showing, I'm gonna prove the point again, because we done brought it up. We done brought it up a few times, and we gonna bring it up again. Cause now we gonna see it and bring it even more closer for us. So guess what? I'm gonna show you why. Romans 9:6. Not as though the word of God had taken none effect. No. For they are not all Israel, which are of Israel. That's the point. This is the point. Again, he's showing us. He's making that separation. He's making that separation abundantly clear to us. I'm telling you. Because why? He tells us right here in verse 8. He said, that is, they, which are the children of the flesh, so these workers of the flesh, these are not the workers of God. No. But the children, so the workers of the promise, are counted for the seed. See, these are they who are reformed, that's counted for the seed. But those of us who want to stay in darkness, guess what? That's exactly what it's showing us. It's showing us we taking the name, we hold it to the name of the covenant people, but we really not that. Because this same rebellion, it keeps us stiff. It keeps us hardened against the pressing of the master hand. Just as the rejection of the potter who's trying to form and shape the clay. This is what he's trying to do. But we reject it. I'll bring it even closer for us. You want me to bring it closer for us so we can get it? Every time we ask the question on do we understand the lesson and we say that we understand and we know we really don't understand, then that's showing you we workers of the flesh. We not really children of the promise. We still operating under rebellion. We in the proximity of the truth and still lying. Still operating under Nimrod's system. We showing that we opposing Jehovah. That's what we showing him every time we do that. Every time we do that, we showing we gonna oppose Jehovah. We rejecting the breaking. Because we don't want our own thoughts processes to be broken. That's why we don't ask questions, we remain quiet. Because we got a thought process, we don't want that to be broken. Again, we opposing Jehovah. Showing we workers of the flesh, not children of the promise. So remember, I told us at the beginning of this teaching, the rebellion is not loud. This rebellion is not loud and it's not aggressive. The rebellion is quiet and subtle. That's what I'm talking about. It happens within us. So those of us who choose not to say anything and those of us who choose to stay that way, we choosing to stay with a carnal mind. We choose that mind. We choosing that. Now we choosing it because now we know. It was one thing when we didn't know. Now we know. This carnal mind that will never, ever submit itself to Jehovah's governance. But we struggle with that. We wonder, like, man, I just can't. We just try to figure out. We just can't get it right. We just can't get it right. Why? Because we continue to resist. We continue to oppose. We continue to oppose the maker. We continue to reject the hand of the potter who's trying to form and shape the clay. But then we're going to turn around and wonder why we keep having the issues. Why? Again, the carnal mind would never submit itself to Jehovah's governance. Never. Even if we remain within the congregation, we will still remain afar off and distant from his presence. We don't ask the questions. We stand afar off. Why? Because it's showing that we will never be subjected unto Jehovah's law. We never will. So in the end, Jehovah, he's still going to make a separation between the two, regardless if we amongst the congregation or not. Being within the body does not make you saved. I hate to burst our bubble. Just because you within the proximity of truth, that don't mean that you saved. If you choose to still remain under your own self-governance of this rebellion, all it's doing is actually just making it worse for you. Because now, you can't say that you don't know. Because matter of fact, all that's gonna come into play, all that comes into play is this. All that comes into play is this, Hebrews 10:26. For if we sin willfully, because we know, after we receive the knowledge of the truth, we know what we're doing. There remaineth no more sacrifice. Ain't no established covenant for sins. But he tell you, but a certain fearful looking full of judgment and a fiery indignation which shall devour the adversaries. Told you. That's it. That's why I say all we doing is just making it worse. That's actually knowing what the truth is and refusing to change, but remaining within the congregation. That's actually the worst position that we can actually put ourselves in. We're going to see it later, even when we go down in the teaching later on. So again, we have to consider our posture. We have to consider our position. The most dangerous position to be in is to be in Jehovah's presence and still actively operating in rebellion in his presence. This is the most dangerous position of operating under Nimrod's system. But when we can even see when this was actually established. Let's look at it. Let's go over here so we can even see it. Let's go over here to Genesis chapter 10. Let's look at it here. In Genesis chapter 10, we'll hit right here in verse 8. He tells us. Genesis chapter 10 and verse 8, it says, and Cush begat Nimrod, and he began to be a mighty one in the earth. So this is what we're looking at. So again, this is not a historical genealogy of a man, but this is establishing a governmental system of rebellion that operates within people to this very day, that operates within vessels to this very day. See, once this teaching was actually brought forth by Elder, from that point on, he even let us know, once we understand this, once we started understanding this, we can no longer go back to the surface. It's just as you sit there, you diving deep into the ocean, you diving into the deep ocean. Once you go down, you can no longer come back up for air. Because if we come back up for air, then we come back up, then that's where we're going to die. Because if we come back up, then that means we're going to resort back to what we was comfortable in. That's what happens. Because we sit there, we get afraid, now we want to come back up. That's the carnal mind. The carnal mind is going to lead to death. The carnal mind is death. It's going to cause a separation. That's the point. So the only choice that we actually have, if we want to live, we have to continue to dive deeper. We have to continue to go deeper. We can't go backwards. But we must always go forward. Nor can we stay stagnant. Because you sit there, no, we got to keep going. So again, like, this is not a historical genealogy of a man, but this here establishes the governing, institutionalized system of rebellion within vessels. Though we seen rebellion that started in the garden with mankind, but this is where rebellion became organized and was made mighty within the people, and it continued to grow. See, even Nimrod, this name itself, this way functions as rebellion, or the valiant, functioning as we will rebel. This is not a single individual, but this is a collective rebellion. This is what's going on with this. So it's not telling you about Cush, a son of Ham, who had a son named Nimrod, and then Nimrod, he became a mighty one in the earth. It's not that. That's what I was saying earlier. This is why I was even making the point earlier. This book is about us. But, you know, what can help us with this, something I even want to share with us to even help us out as we continue to go along and go through these studies. And as you guys go through your own studies, what can help us out even as we move forward? It's something that I always want us to keep in mind as we even approach scripture. There's a few things I want us to keep in mind. I'm gonna come back over here, but it's something I want us to always keep this in mind. So let's go over here. We gonna hit a few verses, and then I'm gonna explain the point. So let's go over here to Isaiah chapter 34. We're gonna hit verse 16 right here. Isaiah chapter 34 and verse 16, and it says, "Seek ye out of the book of the Spirit of God and read." So we see what it's saying. Then we're gonna hit 1 Corinthians. Show us something here. Let's go over here, 1 Corinthians chapter 2. 1 Corinthians chapter 2. And we're gonna hit verse 13. It tells us, it says, "Which things also we speak, not in the words which man's wisdom teacheth, but which the Holy Ghost, the separated body, teacheth, comparing spiritual things with spiritual." And then we're going to hit Romans. Romans chapter 15. And we're going to hit verse 4. Verse 4a. And it says, "For whatsoever things was written aforetime was written for our learning." So the reason that I pulled these verses, the reason I wanted to run these together is this. See, we are told over here in Isaiah chapter 34, verse 16, we always run it all the time. It's telling us to seek ye out of the book of the Spirit of God. So that that functions as you, or all of you, everyone. So each and every single one of us can apply this to ourselves. That's why it says ye or you. So we have to seek ourselves out of this book and understand what we need to know about ourselves. And also, as we do that, he tells us we have to compare spiritual things with spiritual because this book is spiritual. We can only worship God in spirit and in truth. God is a spirit. So Jehovah even tells us that his law is spiritual. So we cannot look at things carnally because that's how we are going to die. Because he even tells us whatsoever things was written aforetime was written for our learning. So everything that was written is for us to learn from. So the whole point with all of this is when we looking at this, that's why I say, he tells us in Genesis 10 and 8, and Cush begat Nimrod, and he began to be a mighty one in the earth. So again, if we looking at this, if we looking at a verse such as this, and we looking at it from a carnal perspective of another nation and their lineage, and this is Cush that had a son, and his name was Nimrod, and he became a mighty one in the earth, and we just read it for that and say, okay, got it, and we move forward, then that's showing we not even taking out the time to even comprehend or even seek to understand what the scriptures are even saying. Because again, if the scripture is telling us to seek you out of the book of the Spirit of God, then why are we going to continue to read verses such as something like this? And then the first thing we're going to do is look at it to pin it towards other people. Does that make sense? Does that make sense what I'm actually saying? Why would we continue to read something now? Something, it don't matter where we go. If we reading something such as this now, and we supposed to be, it says seek you out of the book of Spirit of God. So guess what? Now I need to find out if we're going to compare spiritual things with spiritual, then why are we continually reading these things carnally? Do anybody understand what I'm saying? If this right here is whatever he tell you, whatever was written aforetime was for our learning. So look what this was written for our learning. It ain't just here for no reason. So then do we really believe that this is just as something as simple as telling us merely about a lineage of a people of this another nation and this man named Nimrod? Because if I see it that way, if I see it merely in that way, then how can I actually apply this verse to my life for my learning and my growing and understanding in the Word of God? What is that? Do y'all see what I'm saying? If we looking at it from that carnal perspective, that's what I'm talking about. If it says seek you out of the book of the Spirit of God, then how does this verse apply to me? That's the point. Because if not, then at that point, all this can be held to is just information. But then we don't know the actual purpose of it. It's just information at that point. So that's the point I'm making. And that's what I wanted to share with you guys, because that has helped me a lot as I approach scripture now. Understanding that whatever verse I'm reading in this book, it has a purpose. It has a spiritual meaning. It's something that I need to understand to apply to my life. So the moment I see it, if I see it carnally, and I'm just seeing it just from a carnal perspective, then I'm missing the entire point. But I need to know, how does this verse actually apply to my very life right now? That's what I need to know. That's what I need to understand. How do I need to understand and incorporate this verse? And what do I need to understand about this verse on how it applies to me? Because I know it's there for a reason, but I need to understand it. That's all I'm saying. So that's just some advice I'd like to pass on to everyone as we continue to approach scripture. So again, he tell us, which I'm going to highlight verse 9 as well. He tell you, and Cush begat Nimrod, and he began to be a mighty one in the earth. He was a mighty hunter before the Lord. Wherefore it said, even as Nimrod, a mighty hunter before the Lord. So we're looking at Nimrod. So Nimrod, again, this name, this way. This name is a way. It's not a personal identifier of a man. That's why it's not saying that. but his name is a way. This is a legal declaration of the governance system's agenda. This carnal system, this rebellion, this system of rebellion, and this carnal mind. That's what it is. So when we see here, it said, and Cush begat Nimrod, it's telling us Cush. So Cush, meaning burnt face, black countenance, full of darkness, blackness. So that's what Cush is speaking about. So we can see that Cush, this darkness, this blackness, it begat. It produced, it brought forth the Nimrod function. So it produced the rebellion that became mighty in the earth. So in the people. So it produced this system of rebellion. Because remember, Cush is this black continent. See, I even showed us this even here. Even when we was even looking at this here, so we can even see this. I even showed us this in Genesis chapter 1. Verse 2, and it said, and the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. Because remember, from the beginning, the earth was already without form and in darkness. We was already in that. But again, something happened. So we can see what happened here. And it tells us, it said, and God said, let there be light. And there was light. So that was the change that happened. So the light represents Jehovah's wisdom. That's his illumination shining upon us. So it giving us knowledge and understanding. But again, the issue is when the vessel turns away from the light. See, that's where we have the issue. The vessel that turns away and rejects Jehovah's presence in his very life. See, Jehovah is the one who turns darkness into light. When the light comes, the darkness has no choice but to flee. This is how Jehovah's presence should actually take effect in our very lives. But if we reject the light, if we reject the wisdom that is in the very presence of us, this is the very rejection. This very rejection, just choosing to choose this darkness, is the Cush function that operates within us. The very vessel who rejects the light of help of Jehovah's wisdom in his life. So this is the vessel that chooses to turn from Jehovah and chooses to walk in darkness. This is exactly what we do. This is why we can even see this here when we go over here to Jeremiah. I want to show us we do this in Jeremiah chapter 4, because he even tell us about ourselves. In Jeremiah chapter 4, verse 22 and verse 23, it says, for my people is foolish. They have not known me. He ain't talking about nobody else. He's talking about us. He said, for my people is foolish. They have not known me. They are sottish children. They have none understanding. They are wise to do evil, but to do good, they have no knowledge. So I beheld the earth, and lo, it was without form and void. And the heavens, they had no light. They had no understanding. Exactly the point. Because either way, when a vessel rejects Jehovah's wisdom, now we choose to operate in darkness. We choosing to go without understanding. We choose to not be reshaped and formed. We choose to remain without any order. We choosing to remain void of understanding. Let's show us something. Let's go over here to Job, because I want to show us something in Job. Let's go over here to Job chapter 10. Show us something here. In Job chapter 10, and we're going to hit verse 21. Job chapter 10, verse 21, verse 22. It says, before I go whence I shall not return, even to the land of darkness and the shadow of death. A land of darkness as darkness itself, and of the shadow of death without any order. That's why I said that. And where the light is as comparing darkness. See, but this, I'm gonna tell you why this is so much of an issue, because I'm gonna even show you something that David even said. I want to show us something, show you why this is an issue, because you even see something. I'm gonna show you something. Let's go over here to Psalms chapter 23, verse 4, because you can see the difference. It says, in Psalms 23, verse 4, it says, yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. I will desire no evil. Watch this. For thou art with me. Yeah. So Jehovah's presence, he's letting us know his presence is with him. It says, thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Exactly the point. So this is why David even tell us, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. We understand what's around. He said, thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. See, a lot of people, a lot of us, we love to quote this verse all the time. But when it actually comes down to it, we don't actually want to hold to it. Because that rod is a rod of correction and that discipline. But a lot of us, we don't find comfort in Jehovah's correction and his discipline. So we reject it. We turn away from it. We turn our face away from it. We find comfort in staying the way that we are. But we shy away from the correction. We don't find comfort in it. See, this is why a lot of us reject it. That's why a lot of us reject this way. That's what I'm saying. So we rather be in darkness rather than light. But for whatever reason, we don't see that. When we sit there and when correction comes, that's the light. That's the light coming. But a lot of us, we run from it. We hide from it because we want to stay in darkness. As soon as we refuse correction, as soon as we refuse admonishment and we refuse discipline from the word that's being given unto us, we turning away from the light. We choosing not to receive knowledge. We choosing darkness. So when we sit there and we told something actually for our good, and we sit here and we don't want to accept it, or even if we want to challenge it, it's showing you that we operating with the carnal mind. We under that rebellion system. When we turn away from the light of Jehovah's wisdom that was actually meant to heal us. That's why he even tells us that when we go over here to Ecclesiasticus. When we go over here to Ecclesiasticus or Sirach. Ecclesiasticus or Sirach, chapter 17. And we'll hit verse 26. He actually tells us, it says, turn again to the Most High. Don't turn away. Turn again to the Most High. And turn away from iniquity. But we turning towards it. It said, for he will lead thee out of darkness into the light of hell. That's what he came to do. That's why he came to reshape us and form us. It says, and hate thou abomination vehemently. So this is why I kept saying the light of health. Because it's his light, his wisdom. His presence is what gives us life. It's what gives us balance. It gives us harmony. But if we reject it, this is what I'm saying. See, all of this is still tying into what we getting into, but I'm trying to get us to see spiritually on how this functions in our very lives to this day. We was already in darkness before the word came. But when Jehovah's word came to us, that's when the breaking down of the old vessel and the shaping of the new is supposed to happen. So when the word comes, it's going to force the darkness to flee. Anything that's abominable, sinful, and hateful to God, it has to go. It has to flee. We should hate that vehemently, meaning with jealousy. So that is a violent removal of sin. So we have to forcefully remove sin out of our lives. This is not a passive action. This is a forceful removal of wickedness. Just as when light comes, it comes with power and authority. The darkness has no choice but to flee. But again, once the truth comes, we have to ask ourselves, do we forcefully remove sin? Do we actually submit ourselves to the light, or do we sit there and we want to be passive about it? Do we flee when the light comes in our presence, or do we choose to remain in darkness? See, a lot of times we like to act like things not that big of a deal, and we try to brush stuff off. That's why I say we like to sit there and say, oh, well, I'm just working on it. I'm working on it. I'm working on it. I'm trying. This is what we always love to say and what we love to do. We love to continue to make these excuses for ourselves, always talking about what we're trying to do. Like I said, we hear the word, we listen to the word, but we refuse to actually hearken unto it and do it. Again, because there's no try in the scriptures, but we still do the same things. So again, the vessel that turns away from the light will walk in darkness without Jehovah's presence. So this darkness is this spiritual blindness, this sinfulness. This produces the Nimrod function of this rebellion in the vessel. It produces the rebellion. This is what we're talking about. That's why we can even see when we go here to Isaiah. Let's go here to Isaiah chapter 59. He tell us something in Isaiah chapter 59. Let's see this, because we see it here. In Isaiah chapter 59, we're going to hit verse 7 down to verse 9. And he tell us, it says, their feet, their desires run to evil. Yeah. And they make haste to shed innocent blood. So innocent lifestyle. Their thoughts are thoughts of iniquity. Wasting and destruction are in their paths. The way of peace they know not. And there is no judgment. There's no doctrines and teaching in their goings. They have made them crooked paths. Whosoever goeth therein shall not know peace. Therefore, so for that reason, is judgment, doctrine, and teaching is far from us. Yeah. Neither do justice overtake us. We wait for light. Yeah. Yeah, we waiting for the light. But behold, but remember obscurity. For brightness, but we walk in darkness. We living in ignorance. We living in blindness and sinfulness and no understanding. So we can see what's going on. So again, so when we looking at this, we can see that this darkness here. So this darkness brought forth this rebellion that became mighty in the people. It became mighty in this people. So this is a collective, organized, institutional rebellion of the carnal mind against the governance of Jehovah's spirit. This is where the carnal mind now is going to be operating at full capacity. That's why it became mighty. That's why he said that. That's why he said he was mighty. Because now it's going to be operating at full capacity. That's why I say mighty. So this rebellion, it became institutionalized because it's organized now. It's an organized rebellion. That's why we can see in verse 9 it said he was mighty before the Lord. Wherefore it said, even as Nimrod, a mighty hunter before the Lord. So this system of rebellion is a mighty hunter in the presence of the Spirit of God. So it hunts its prey. It hunts its prey. This is a predatory nature. So it ain't going to wait for you. No, it hunts. It lies in wait. It lies in wait to catch. It's just like a predatory animal. That's how it comes after us. It's like a lion that goes around catching a whole bunch of gazelles. And what it's going to do, it's going to go out and it's going to catch the weakest links. That's what it's going to do. It's going to catch the weakest links. Those of us who are most susceptible to fall to this flesh. That's why it goes after the young. That's why you see a lion or a predator animal. It'll go after the younger ones because it already know it gonna get the younger ones because they the weaker ones. That's gonna be easier to get caught up because it's gonna go after the ones who are weakest and cannot defend themselves, who are easily caught up in sin. He tell us something over here in Sirach. I want to show us something. He tell us something over here in Sirach. In Sirach chapter 27. Sirach chapter 27 and verse 10. He tells us something. Sirach chapter 27 verse 10. It says, as comparing the lion lieth in wait for the prey, so is sin for them that work iniquity, that work those acts of sin. Exactly the point. It's going to lie in wait. So the adversary is predatory. He hunts for his prey. This spirit of this rebellion, it's going to hunt for its prey. Is to devour and to consume them. That's why we can even see here, he tells us in 1 Peter. That's why he can tell us, he tells us this in 1 Peter chapter 5. In 1 Peter chapter 5 and verse 8, he tells us, in 1 Peter chapter 5 verse 8, he tells us to be sober and be vigilant because your adversary, the devil, as a roaring lion, comparing a roaring lion, walketh about, seeking whom he may devour. But again, this adversary, see the catch is, he don't catch us with violence. No, he don't catch us with aggression. That's why I say, it ain't loud, it ain't aggressive, it's subtle. He don't catch us with that. That's the catch. He gonna catch us with things that entices us. That's how he get us. He gonna catch us with the very things that's gonna please our flesh. He gonna catch us with the stuff that we like. That's the bait. He gonna catch us with the things that's gonna entice us and persuade us to give in to it. Because remember, this adversary, this hunter, is the carnal mind. So the only way to catch us is to get us caught in something that's actually gonna please flesh, something that we can see, something that we can lust over. Not just sexual desires, but anything that the flesh craves for and has an appetite for, that the eyes can see. That's what he puts in front of us. That's the point. Matter of fact, that's why he even tell us right here when we go over here to we can even see this here and in 1 John chapter 2. 1 John chapter 2, he even tell you. 1 John chapter 2. Verse 15 to verse 16, it says, love not the world, so promise not the world, neither the things that are in the world. Provided any male or female promise the world, the promise of the Father is not in him. For all that is in the world, the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, of the understandings, the pride of life, is not of the Father, but is of the world. So anything in this world that can attract us, that can draw us in, that drives that attention, that fleshly nature that we have, he can get us caught up in it. He can get us caught. That's the point. These are the things that that it puts in front of us. It gets us caught up slowly. Slowly. But you can even see why he even tells us. You can even see why he even tell us this here. Because he gonna keep feeding us with it. He gonna keep feeding us with it. He gonna keep feeding us with it. That's why you even tell you, it says that we henceforth be no more children. we can't be as a child, tossed to and fro, and carried about with every wind of doctrine, by the sleight of men, and cunning craftiness. That's why I say it's cunning, it's subtle, whereby they lie in wait to deceive. This is what's gonna happen. So he tells us everything. This is how it happens. That's why we always told right now, even here, we always told to watch who we learn from. See, understand that don't just apply to those on the outside who openly push false doctrine, as you've seen in those buildings and as in those camps. This also applies to those that are here within the house. Because again, I'm going to make the point again, within a great house are vessels of wood and stone, silver and gold. So there's always a mixed multitude within the house. All Israel is not Israel. You got two systems that's operating within this house at the same time right now. So this is why I say we can't sit here and play the game. So when we watch who we learn from, that applies to everybody. That applies to me. That's why he say you got to try the spirits. Because the issue that we always have, the carnal mind will always be swayed and persuaded by a doctrine that sounds good to flesh. It's always going to be swayed and persuaded by that. Something that's pleasing to them. This is why we always have to prove everything on what we saying, on what we holding to. Because why? You remember them, like I said, this hunter, he going to be hunting, but he looking for the weakest links. That's what he looking for. That's who he gonna be going after. These are the ones that believe anything that they hear. That's why you see this in Proverbs chapter 14, verse 15. He tell you, it says, the simple believeth every word. But the prudent man, so that prudent looketh well to his going. But it's simple. So this simple is the foolish, the unlearned. So that's what I'm saying. These are just as the same ones that just as like those gazelles, just out there, they don't know what's going on. That's why he say. So these are they that will hold to anything that they hear. Simple. It's just simple, man. It's just, hey, you hear it? Oh, it sounds good. Okay, we go along with it. Hold to anything that seemeth right. See, I'm trying to bring it closer for us so we can see exactly this is how we actually get caught up. These are the same ones who always want to follow the crowd, follow what everybody else is doing, but don't check nothing, but will follow everything. So we can be easily persuaded because we're not actually willing to stand on our own. Even if something don't sound right, we'll just believe it just because everybody else doing it. We'll just believe everything that we hear and go along with it. Again, that's the carnal mind. This is how he get us. I'm gonna say there's many ways he can get us. This is how we actually get caught up. He tell us something over here in Proverbs. In Proverbs chapter 23. Proverbs chapter 23, we hit verse 6 and verse 7. He tell us something. It says, eat thou, so learn thou, not the bread. So don't learn the knowledge of him that have an evil eye, that have an evil understanding. Neither desire thou his dainty meats. So these dainty meats are these deceitful doctrines. They're going to push these worldly pleasures, these things that flesh want to hear. For as he thinketh in his heart, as he thinketh in his desire, so is he. Eat and drink. So learn and get understanding, saith he to thee. Yeah, that's what he's going to say. But his heart, his desire is not with thee. This is, again, exactly why we are to try the spirits. So it don't matter where it's coming from or who it's coming from. You got to try that to make sure it's coming from God. But it's the doctrines that we'll believe and we'll hold to that will get us caught up. Understand, anybody that's saying anything, that's telling you anything about God, they sitting there, they give you, I don't care if it's a teaching, I don't care if it's just advice. You talking to, if they telling you anything, they give you any type of advice, any type of counsel, and it's pertaining to anything, and they bring God into it, they pushing a doctrine to you. They sitting there, they giving you something, giving you counsel, they sitting there pushing a doctrine. So if we sit there and we just hear something and we just take it in and we just believe it, we just hold to it, and we don't try it, and prove and see if it's of God, then if we get caught up, then guess what? Whose fault is it? That's our own dang fault. Because we sit right there and we was told and we still chose to do otherwise. So again, it's the doctrines that we'll believe and hold on to that get us caught. This is the function of the mighty hunter. It's predatory. It's gonna come. It don't wait for you. It's coming. That's why he lets us know in Jeremiah chapter 16. Jeremiah chapter 16 and verse 16. He says, behold, I will send many fishers, saith the Spirit of God, and they shall fish them. So he'll send his fishers, these teachers, but watch this. And after will I send for many hunters. Yeah. And they shall hunt them from every mountain and from every hill and out of the holes of the rocks. So we can see this system is set up to feed and nourish the carnal mind, to keep us in fleshly ways of thinking, to keep us caught up on human traditions, worldly practices, to feed us with the play on our emotions. That's what I'm talking. When you sit there, you getting fed with something and it's giving you receiving this emotional excitement. That plays on our flesh. Sitting here listening and wanting to receive entertainment, something that entertains us. See, this is what the flesh feeds on. This is what these hunters gonna come with. This is why a lot of us, when we sit there, we like to listen to smooth things. This is why we actually get caught in that. Because he tells us over here in Isaiah chapter 30. Isaiah chapter 30, and we hit verse 9. Isaiah chapter 30, verse 9 and verse 10, it says that this is a rebellious people. He's telling us what we about. A lying children. Children that will not hear the law of the Spirit of God. Yeah, because we don't want to hear sound doctrine, which said to the seer, see not. And to the prophets, prophesy not unto us right things, speak unto us smooth things. Prophesy deceits. Tell us something that's going to make us feel good. This is what it does. See, as long as we get told something that's going to make us feel good about ourselves, and we feel good, he going to keep feeding us with it. See, a lot of us, we don't like to hear these type of messages. We don't like to hear stuff that's going to make us feel a certain way. But this is, again, why we always had the issue. Because why in the world, I'm going to keep saying this, why in the world are we going to come over here and preach feel-good messages as if we got it all together? And we know we got these issues going on within us. Like I said, the enemy is within the house, and we sitting here, we want to have a feel-good message. We want to have a kumbaya. Why in the world we going to come here and preach these dang feel-good messages, telling you how we the people, telling you about all the blessings the Lord going to provide, and everything going to be okay, and everything going to be all good? Why in the hell we going to sit here and teach some messages such as that? That ain't no different from coming up here and preaching all you got to do is believe and you going to be saved. That ain't no different from these smooth sounding messages that cater to flesh. We sit up here doing that. Ain't no different from you still ain't no different from the Christian churches. But we want to hear that. We want to hear something that's going to cater to the flesh rather than tearing down the flesh. so we can understand what our issue is and understand what's right. But the same thing is, like I said, something I always got to hold to, and I'm always hold to it. This is a thing here in Amos chapter 3. Same thing. He tell us in Amos chapter 3, verse 1 and verse 2. This always pops up. He tell you, hear this word that the Spirit of God has spoken against you. He didn't say for you. He's spoken against you, O children of Israel, against the whole family which I brought up from the land of Egypt, from this house of bondage, saying, you only have I known of all the families of the earth. For that reason, I will punish you for all your iniquities. Again, this is showing you, Jehovah is speaking to this one people, Adam, mankind, this covenant people who he chose. He's saying he got an issue with this people, that he's spoken this word against us. And he's going to punish us for all of our iniquity. We got to figure out what we got going on. And we want to talk about who we are, and we want to sit here and act like everything okay. And we want to boast about who we are, and he telling us he got an issue with us. It's too many issues that we got as a whole that we need to be speaking on. We got a problem. So why in the world we going to come out here and just try to tell everybody, oh, how everything going to be good? As if we not the ones with the problem. But that's what flesh going to do. See, flesh is going to avoid the hard stuff that's hard to take. I don't want to make nobody feel no type of way, so I ain't going to say this, I ain't going to say that. Yeah, you know why? Because we still operate with the carnal mind. We still trying to people please. We still want to show respect to people. We want to stay in our comfort zone because we comfortable in our environment. Because we rather stay asleep. But that's how the rebellion works. We turn our ears from hearing the law to listen to things that's pleasing to us. Back over here in Genesis chapter 10, verse 9, he tell you, he was a mighty hunter in the presence of the Spirit of God. So he telling us this. So you see this before the Lord, this before the Lord, this before is in the presence. He telling us in the presence of the Spirit of God. Or in the face of, or in the presence of, in the face of. So this rebellion became a mighty hunter in the presence of the Spirit of God. This is what's going on. Now remember, earlier I was telling us the most dangerous position to be in was to be in the presence of Jehovah and still actively operating in rebellion. We remember that? We sitting there operating in rebellion in his presence. That's where that came from. That's why you see this here. So this is showing you this rebellion, this very rebellion does not operate in ignorance. Understand what's being said. It don't operate in ignorance, meaning it don't know what's going on. This is a willful rebellion in Jehovah's presence. It knows what's going on. So it's knowingly going against the truth that was spoken. It heard the word. And it knows it. Meaning what? These are vessels who will continue to do what they're going to do no matter what. They're going to continue to build their own tower of defiance. Even after receiving instruction, they still going to do it. We're going to continue to build what we want to build. This is why we can even see here this practice, this system that has now been established. We can see as we go right here. Verse 10, and it said, in the beginning of his kingdom was Babel. And this Babel is telling you about confusion by mixing. See, now this is where it became established. So now the beginning of this kingdom of confusion is by mixing. So mixing truth with a lie. This is this counterfeit doctrine that's pushed. What that is, same thing we talked about earlier, is by using the name of Jehovah. See, we'll use the name of Jehovah, but then turn around and mix it with a carnal agenda. Meaning, you saying you holding to Jehovah's way, but then still turn around and do everything that caters to the flesh. It's confusion. So this means that every institution You can even see this. Every institution that is built or that has ever been built that carries the name of God or that carries the name of Jehovah while operating under the governance of the carnal mind is an institution of Babel. Every single one. No matter how you look at it. It's confusion. No matter what. Because it's counterfeit. It's a counterfeit doctrine. Because it's carrying the name of Jehovah while holding to his own beliefs. That's why you can even see why you can even see he even tell us this in Isaiah chapter 4 and verse 1. It says, and in that day, 7 women. So this completion of spirits shall take hold of one man, one male or female, saying, we will eat our own bread, so we're going to learn our own doctrine, wear our own apparel, so we're going to have our own covering. Only let us be called by thy name, by thy way, and take away our approach. So we only want to carry the way. But you know how many people that hold to the name of God or hold to the name of Jehovah and still push a doctrine that is in complete opposition to his way? So this is this high tower of confusion. It don't matter what religious-based system or denomination or group that it is. That's why we can even see this here when we go over here to Genesis chapter 11. In Genesis chapter 11 and verse 4, he tells us, Genesis chapter 11, verse 4, and it said, and they said, go to, let us build us a city and a high tower whose top may reach into heaven, and let us make us a name. We're going to make us a way, lest we be scattered abroad upon the face of the whole earth. So this is what our issue is. See, we want to make us a way. We want that reputation. We've been talking about that a lot. But like I said, later on, we're going to get more into this. But you see, we're going to build this tower. We're going to build this tower carrying the name of Jehovah while still holding to falsities, while still operating in opposition while carrying the name. So this tower even represents the loftiness, the pride, and the arrogancy of our own thoughts. And we're going to do it in his presence. We're going to do it in his face. This is what I'm talking about. But guess what? It's still going to be brought down. He's still going to bring it down. Because he even tell us. He let us know. But I'm going to show you. Let's go over here to Isaiah chapter 2. Hey, why I do that? Let's go over here to Isaiah chapter 2. Isaiah chapter 2. Let's see. Isaiah chapter 2. We're going to hit verse 12. And then we're going to hit verse 14 and 15. And 17. Isaiah chapter 2. With Isaiah chapter 2, starting at verse 12, then 14 and 15 and 17. It says, for the day of the Spirit of God of hosts shall be upon everyone that is proud and lofty, upon everyone that is lifted up, and he shall be brought low. Watch what he say. And upon all the high mountains, and upon all the hills that are lifted up, upon every high tower. Exactly, that's the point. And upon every fence wall. Watch this in verse 17. And the loftiness of man shall be bowed down, and the haughtiness of men shall be made low, and the Spirit of God alone shall be exalted in that day. So this is going to happen. Everyone who continues to exalt themselves in the presence of Jehovah will be brought low. He's going to bring all that down. So this goes for not only man-made structures, this goes for the vessels who choose to do so within their own internal will of their heart that we choosing to do. So we can even see something. Let's go over here. Let's go over here to Wisdom of Solomon. Let's go over here to Wisdom of Solomon. We're going to hit chapter 14. Wisdom of Solomon chapter 14, and we're going to hit verse 8. Because you can see how we even do this. And it said, but that which is made with hands, with powers, is cursed, as well it as he that made it. He, because he made it, and it, because being corruptible, it was called God. So even though those man-made structures are made with men's hands, with man's power and authority, they take on the name of God. They take on the name. They name these places after God, calling them houses of God, temples of God, houses of the Lord. They use all these names while pushing their own carnal doctrines. These structures have been institutionalized all over the world. This world is built on these religious practices that actually opposes and resists Jehovah's way. Instead of actually practicing genuine worship, but they sit there and put on a show. This is why when you run into people, when you even run into people on the street, the first thing they want to talk about something, and then you might get into a conversation about Bible. The first thing they're gonna say is they're gonna ask you what religion you follow. They're gonna ask you that, or they're gonna ask you what denomination you come from. That's what they always gonna ask, because they automatically gonna tie you to some Christian denomination or religion. It's automatic. It's gonna be automatic. Why? Because that's the system that this world is built on. It's built on all these Christian denominations of religion. So they already gonna assume that you got to be part of some institution, some denomination, or some religion. Because this world is institutionalized. This rebellion that's what it's built on. These religious systems and practices that actually rebel against Jehovah's way. That's why you see him. He tell you over here in Ezekiel chapter 16 in verse 24, he tell you, it says that thou has also built unto thee an eminent place that has made a high place on every street. That's why you see it's everywhere. Everywhere you go, you're going to see these high places. You're going to see these eminent places. These are just as towers. These institutions that have been set on high, representing complete defiance against Jehovah's government. So all of them are in defiance against Jehovah's government. But the craziest part about it is people will tell you and swear unto you up and down that, soon as you tell them about not going in these buildings made with hands and practicing all these heathen traditions and all these things, first thing they're gonna say is, well, that's all I ever known all my life. That's what they're gonna say. But that's all I ever known all my life. That's what they're gonna say. That's all I know. That's the excuse that most of us always go for. We always say, this is all I ever known. But we never consider if all that we say that we've ever known, we never consider if it was actually a lie, if it was a counterfeit. We never considered that part. We just believe what we've been brought up in to be true. Just because we've been in something for so long, just because we've been doing something for so long, that don't mean it's right. The way of man is right in his own eyes. Just because that might have been all we ever known, but it's because we have been so deeply embedded in a practice for so long, it makes it hard to actually distinguish it from what's actually true. Now remember, at the beginning of this teaching, I showed us that we was all brought forth in iniquity. We was all brought forth in sin. Again, just because we was born into a sinful environment, that does not mean that it's normal. That don't make it right. That don't mean that it's right. Just because we brought forth into this world, you see all these things going. That don't mean it's normal. But we, even as the covenant people, have been so deeply embedded in something that has been defiant against Jehovah's spirit. And it's been going on for so long that we can't even perceive that it's all been wrong the entire time. We can't even see it. And I'm talking about us as a whole, as a people, not just his here, but the children of Israel as a whole. But this is why a lot of us have an issue, because this is why we can even see this happening here. That's why you can see when we get down here to verse 11 in Genesis chapter 10, verse 11 and verse 12. You can even see it says, out of that land went forth Asher and built Nineveh and the city Rehoboth and Calah, and Rezin between Nineveh and Calah, the same is a great city. So you see it said Asher went forth out of that land, which is this land of Shinar, which we're going to come back to later. So Asher went forth out of that land. So from this same government, from this land of Shinar, between these two rivers. But remember, Asher is from Shem. He's from the covenant line. That's why you even see down here in verse 22, it tell you. That's why you see down here in verse 22, it tell you, it says, and the children of Shem, Elam, Asher. So Asher is not from the Nimrod function. nor from the Cush function of darkness. He's not from that system, but he became a part of it. He absorbed the ways and the practices of it because he was there long enough to be established by it. That's the thing. All he had to do was absorb enough information from that very system to become established by that government. Now he can build himself off the same agenda of which he absorbed, which he learned that he was learning. But the thing is, this same thing happens to us. But this is why we even going to focus on Nineveh, because this city or this people, these people are people who are a part of the covenant line. That's why I'm focusing on that so much right now. But the issue is, even though they are a part of the covenant line, their ways, their practices, their traditions are built and established from Nimrod's kingdom, because that's Asher. Asher came from that system, and he built this. So even though they are a part of the covenant lineage, their ways, their traditions, and their practices are in opposition to Jehovah's covenant promise that he gave unto this same people. It's crazy, but that's why. But this is what happens. That's why you can even see why this had to happen right here when we go over here to Jonah chapter 1. In Jonah chapter 1, verse 1 and verse 2, that's why we see it says, now the word of the Spirit of God came unto Jonah, the son of Amittai, saying, arise, go to Nineveh. Same that you see here that Asher built. He said, go into Nineveh, that great city, and cry against it, for their wickedness is come up before me. It's in the presence of me. We doing this in the presence of him. That's what we talking about. This is why this had to happen. See, this is why Jonah, a prophet of Jehovah, was sent to warn this people of Nineveh, because they were a part of the covenant lineage, but their practices, their traditions, and their ways was built off another governance that wasn't of Jehovah, but was of Nimrod's system, of this system of rebellion against Jehovah's ways. That's the issue, because Jehovah was actually going to destroy this people, so that's why he had to send warning. He had to send warning regardless. But really, really think about how this actually works, how this actually happens. See, think about after all the years and years and years and years of doing something, of practicing the belief for so long, now it's become normalized as something that you start to believe is true. It becomes a normal routine. These same people here have been in this same groove, this same pattern for so long that they'll believe that these doctrines and beliefs that they follow to be true. But this is the same thing we do. That's why Jehovah had to send them word, because that's what they was brought up in. That's all they knew. You see it here. See, this was established back over here in Genesis. Asher went forth. Asher went forth out of this land and built Nineveh. That's what he built. He went forth out of that land and built his own city. So even after leaving out of one institution, you go off and build another. But this is exactly what we do as a people. This is why people believe if they leave off from one ministry and go and build another, that they doing something better. They find themselves unsatisfied with the ministry that they might be in. So let me go off and let me build greater. When their beliefs, their ways, their traditions, and their practices all stemmed from the doctrine that they was brought up and trained in, where they came from. This is why right now, when you see people who are even of the covenant line, who are even of the children of Israel, who have left from those buildings, who have left from those churches, they sat there and still have chosen to build their own ministry and their own doctrine. Same thing like you see with the camps and these other YouTube channels and self-proclaimed teachers that start rising up saying, well, you know what? They saying now they know who they are now. Now we know who we are. Really, you know who you are, but your doctrine is based on the same pattern and structure of the institution that you actually left from. That's why they're the way that they are. That's why they all speak the same doctrine. They might sit there and put a little different spin on it, but they all coming from the same type of source, the same source of the same type of background. So this is the point that we making. The same people who come up and call themselves speaking against churches that have started these Israelite camps and these YouTube channels and their own private ministries, they say they got the truth. But they still hold to the same practices that they left from. Just as the churches took tithes. These same places that go against the churches, they still take up money. They take donations. So they still following those same practices. You see the point? They might have left from the institution physically, but it never left their hearts. They follow the same outward religious practices by wearing these garments that they believe portray some type of righteousness. Instead of wearing a suit and a tie with a white collar, now they're wearing robes, headbands, and gauntlets. You're still doing the same thing. You're just doing it in a different way. Instead of preaching about a white Jesus coming down from heaven, now they preach to you about a black Jesus coming down from heaven. They just call him by Yahushua. But this is the point. These same ministries have failed to realize that they are still caught in the same Nimrod system. They still caught in this rebellion of this carnal mind. They are still in 100% defiance against Jehovah's governance. Because everything they do is still carnal, no matter what. All of their doctrine and beliefs are built on the precepts and the instructions of men. This is exactly why every time we speak here at King James Bible University, every time a teaching goes out here at King James Bible University in the house of the lost sheep of Israel, this is exactly the reason why we always make it known that we don't affiliate with any other organization or any religious groups out there. That's why we always make that abundantly clear, to show that we are completely separated from those institutions. We don't hold to anything that they do or any doctrine of anything that they push, because we don't hold to those patterns. We don't hold to those structures or those belief systems. That's the point, because the doctrine that's taught here from the teachers here, you're not going to hear it nowhere else unless somebody comes over here and takes it, and then all they're going to do is take it back and start heroizing it. That's the only way you're going to hear it. So when men have built their own ministries off something carnal that they was brought up in, but then they carry that same pattern into the next ministry they enter into, it follows the same pattern as when Asher went out of Nimrod's kingdom and established his own city. It's no different. He still held to those beliefs and patterns that he took in, that he absorbed. But people are going to believe the same thing. They sit there and say, well, this is all I ever known of my entire life. That's what people are going to always tell you. Well, this is all I ever know my entire life. Yeah, because people will refuse to believe that they have been established by a counterfeit doctrine so deeply rooted in a system that has been in opposition to Jehovah's governance for their entire lives and can't even see it. So they see it. So we see it as normal. See it as a normal routine, just a normal thing to do. When you can see right here in the book, he literally showing us. But because we choose to be carnally minded, we choose death. We choose that separation from Jehovah's spirit. So it goes right back. It goes right back into the same thing. He tell you in Romans chapter 8, verse 6, it says, for to be carnally minded is death, but to be spiritually minded is life and peace. So we can clearly see this separation. We can see that these are two systems that will operate simultaneously at the same time. But the carnal system will always operate on rebellion no matter what, because the carnal mind is always going to be in opposition to the spirit. But again, this is not just the institutionalized structures that we're speaking about concerning the Nimrod's function. This system of rebellion is not just the institutions, but again, we cannot forget it's found within us, those of us who reject the forming and the shaping of Jehovah's spirit. Because remember, this is going to happen in the presence of Jehovah. We're going to sit there and we're going to do this no matter what. Why? Because we always going to find a way according to what pleases us. That's why he tells us in Proverbs chapter 14, verse 12, it says, there is a way which seemeth right unto a man, unto a male or female, but the end thereof are the ways of death. He tell you this because we always going to do things that seem right to us. But That's why we always continue to have the issue. But I want to show us something, because even everything that we speaking about right now, this even goes into a lot on what we was even speaking about on last week. Because the carnal mind, the vessel who operates in rebellion, is even as a house that's built on sand. It ain't no different, because eventually it's gonna fall, because now it has rejected Jehovah's governance over that house. It's rejected his standard. This is why it gets so serious for us. So now we gonna see how that all of this actually ties together. So we have to consider the difference between these ways. So we have to remember something. We have to remember something, because even when we even looking at this, even when we even looked at this, because I want to show us how this even ties in. So I want to go over here to Deuteronomy chapter 25 and verse 15, because I want to show us something. It says, "But thou," so he's speaking to us, "shall have a perfect and just weight. A perfect and just measure shall thou have, that thy days may be lengthened in the land which the Spirit of God thy God giveth thee." So we have to remember the weight is the standard of measurement. But we have to remember a stone is primarily used as the standard. Why? Because it's a fixed object that doesn't shift, it doesn't move, its value has been established. So this is no different from Jehovah's established law and his precepts, his instructions and commandments, which is a fixed, unmovable standard that does not shift nor change, just as the stone. But it bears the same question, because if that's the case, then what happens when you replace that stone? You replace that with sand, something that can be altered, that can be changed, that can be shaped into whatever you want it to be. What happens then? Because I want to show us something. I want to show us something on this. Let's go over here to Wisdom of Solomon. Wisdom of Solomon chapter 15. Wisdom of Solomon chapter 15 and verse 7. He tells us something. It says, "For the potter, tempering soft earth, fashioneth every vessel with much labor for our service. Yea, of the same clay he maketh both vessels that serve for clean uses, and likewise also all such as serveth to the contrary. But what is the use of either sort? The potter himself is the judge." So we see he continuously making this separation between these vessels. So again, the clay is in the hand of the potter to fashion it as he seeth fit. But the point we looking at here is this soft earth, this tempering of this soft earth. So this soft earth is just like sand. So you can mold it, you can fashion it and shape it into whatever you want it to be. But you can't do that with a rock. See, with that, this is no different from when you have people who will go out to the beach and then they sit there and build sandcastles. I know we've seen that. You got people that go out to the beach and build sandcastles. They build sand towers, stuff like that. You can shape it, you can mold it into whatever you want it to be, but you can easily knock it down too. It can easily fall too. That's the point. So that shows us the same thing is replacing Jehovah's standard with sand now removes the standard, and then you replace it with your own. So now you building yourself upon your own carnal mindset. That's just like building a sandcastle, because the sand is soft. It's just as soil. It's from the ground, but the sand will shift. It's shifty. Though it can be heavy if you gather a lot of it, but it's still unstable. Think about what a small, insignificant speck of sand can turn into if you gather enough of it. That's what we're talking about. It becomes heavy. It grows more and more over time, but it still has no value. So this is what we're talking about. So I wanna show us something. I want to go over here to Matthew chapter 7, because we're gonna see how this is tying in. I want to go to Matthew chapter 7, and we're gonna hit verse 26. He's gonna tell us something. It says, "And everyone that heareth these sayings of mine and doeth them not shall be likened unto a foolish man, which built his house upon the sand." So again, this right here, this goes for those of us that hear the words of Jehovah and doeth them not. This is still the rebellion of the carnal mind, because no matter what, it can't and never will be subjected to Jehovah's law, to his standard, to his governance. So those that do this are doing it in the presence of the Spirit of God. They hear the word and do it for not. This is what we're talking about. This is not the vessel that has not heard the voice of Jehovah. This is the vessel that heareth the words of Jehovah, that knows it and has been in the presence of the word and still continues to build his own way. He'll build his own tower in his own defiance against the governance of Jehovah's spirit. This ill is no different, just as a house that's built on sand. Why? Because he's building upon his flesh. He's building upon his own carnal mind, because he's building upon something that's weak. This is no different from the self-governance of the Tower of Babel. See, for a house to be built on sand completely violates Jehovah's standard. We have to remember, the Spirit of God, his word is the sure foundation that we must be built upon. But to be built upon sand leaves you with no foundation, because your building is upon something that came from the ground, something of the flesh, something that's shifty and unstable, that's frail. For someone to build their house upon sand is building upon flesh, and to reject Jehovah's established standard, to establish yourself in your own fleshly doctrine and belief, holding to your own beliefs and traditions by your own self-glorification and carnal reasoning. This is a rebellion. See, that's why I even brought up and even showed us. That's why we seen that happening in those churches, in those camps all the time, because their houses, their congregations, their assemblies are built on sand. They've built towers, taking the name of Jehovah while building something that's contrary to his way. They have violated Jehovah's unmovable standard in his covenant, because Jehovah already tell us, according to Psalms, because he even tell us here when we see this, he already tells us this. He already tells us this when we go over here. The Psalms chapter 89 and verse 34, he says, my covenant will I not break, nor alter the thing that's gone out of my lips. He's not going to break it, but we sit there and corrupt it, meaning we change from the original agreement, but he don't change anything. So these same men have violated this standard by building upon their own beliefs, holding to their own traditions, believing that their way is right no matter what, and don't even realize that they are caught in a system that was already established before they was even born. But we want to appear righteous outwardly while building upon fleshly beliefs. That's why you see it say, for everyone that heareth these sayings of mine and doeth them not. These are they that have heard the truth and have turned away from it and have rejected it, choosing to stay in their own carnal institutions, pushing their own doctrines. But he tell you in verse 27, and it says, and the rain descended, and the floods came, and the winds blew, and beat upon that house. So it beat upon that assembly. It beat upon that assembly, and it fell, and great was the fall of it. So when the judgment comes, Jehovah provides no protection. He provides no blessing, nor any covering for these assemblies, because they have violated his standard and his covenant. So they will eventually fall. That's why you see them falling all the time, being brought down all the time, because these same deceitful ones have compromised the purity of Jehovah's covenant and rejected the sure foundation, which is his word and his agreement with his people, to hold on to the carnal nature. So they want to build upon carnal doctrines. That's the issue, which he even tell you this, the consequence of that. He tell you when we even see this in 1 Peter. He tell you this in 1 Peter chapter 2. In 1 Peter chapter 2, and we'll hit verse 7 and verse 8. 1 Peter chapter 2, verse 7 and verse 8. He tell us, it says, unto you therefore which believe he is precious, but unto them which be disobedient, the stone which the builders disallow, the same is made a head of the corner, the stone of stumbling and a rock of offense, even to them which stumble at the word, being disobedient, whereunto also they were appointed. So this is a consequence of the violation of the standard, a clear rejection, a refusal to abide by Jehovah's standard. This rebellion is a fleshly compromise of the purity of Jehovah's covenant agreement, because it's corruption. So the issue is the same thing that goes even for us here in this congregation. Those who hear the word and doeth it not. These are they who operate under the Nimrod function, even they that have even built their houses on sand, who have continued to build upon the towers of their own hearts, continuing to establish their own self-governance while in the presence of Jehovah. That's why I say, this is why it gets so much serious for us, because he tell us this, and he tell us in 1 Samuel chapter 15, in 1 Samuel chapter 15, 1 Samuel chapter 15, and he tell us in verse 23, right here to the period. It says, for rebellion is as comparing sin or witchcraft, and stubbornness is as comparing iniquity and idolatry. Because a lot of us, we stubborn, no matter what. A lot of us, we sit there, we refuse to change, because the carnal mind, we have to understand, it cannot be reformed. It cannot be made better. You can't educate it in the ways of Jehovah or try to improve it to make it better. The carnal mind will always continue to be what it is and believe that it will govern its own interior life. So again, this rebellion is not loud, nor is it aggressive. It's not the one that walks away from the congregation, but it's quiet and subtle. It's the one that continues to build his tower or his house of sand while staying within the congregation by hearing the word, while simultaneously refusing to be governed by the Spirit of Jehovah. That's why I say, it don't matter how long that we hear. It don't matter how much we are in attendance. See, what we have to understand is we can be amongst the congregation and still be operating currently under Nimrod's system, under this rebellious nature, this rebellious spirit. This is what can happen. See, this is what goes on, and this is what we dealing with. So I'm gonna tell you what, I got a lot more information that I gotta go through. But like I said, this is just the part one of this teaching. But like I said, we have a lot more information that we definitely got to go through in this lesson. So this lesson, this series that we doing of this system of rebellion, it's going to go on for a while, but hopefully with everything that's been brought forth so far, that we got a pretty good understanding on what we're looking at and how this is actually working. So, with that, as we continue to move forward, and like I said, we're going to continue with this, even as, we go into next week, which, a lot of you guys we will be seeing at the Passover. So definitely can't wait to see a lot of you guys there, and also meet a lot of you guys for the first time as we begin to enter into next week, as we go into the Passover. So definitely ready to see you guys as we get over there. So with that, I definitely appreciate everyone for coming out and tuning in to this lesson. This was Elder James with the King James Bible University, and I would like to say, Shalom.